Okay, welcome to Earth visitors. We'll just go through this poem and try to get some of the ideas from it. This poem, it tells a story. Perhaps you could say that it's a narrative poem about some powerful visitors that come and take advantage of the vulnerable and then leave. And in the second part, there is a sense of victory and triumph. So Slessor is actually using a lot of Greek and Roman imagery in some of these poems, and this one seems to be one that he's drawing on some of this classical sort of romantic imagery of good and evil, and in the end where there's the Venus, the goddess of love, is triumphant. She sort of taps into that. So we'll keep going through this. So initially you notice that there's this notion of strange and strangers and this kind of exotic, foreign, powerful titles. You've got lots of words like cloaked and dark furs, names that rang like viols. That's an old-fashioned musical instrument. Perchance, that's a word that was probably used around Shakespeare's time. Princes, feasting, barons, gypsy, blown on raven chargers, so chargers being horses, and that's the method of transport. Beards and courtyards at midnight. So this notion that it's kind of a secret time, courtyards at midnight, perhaps a time of kings and battles, possibly. So it goes forward. Postboys would run, lanterns hang, frostily horses fume. The strangers wake the inn, men staring outside, past watery glass, thick panes, could watch them eat. So we've got these postboys who are running errands. You've got this notion of status and ritual, of hierarchy, of, straight away they would click their fingers and they're cared for. So we've got the lanterns, the inn, those kind of notions from the 18th century, perhaps. Candle flame, gold, gloves. So that keeps going. You've also got this notion of the men staring outside inn. So there are some people who can watch them eat, but are unable to do so. Their garments foreign and their strange tongue, but sweet as pineapple. It was archdukes they must be. So, but then in daylight, so we've kind of got this magic quality. There's a lot of colour and sort of, not gaudiness, but sort of a sense of luxury, I think, about this. It's a very rich use of imagery. And if we're looking at the sentences and the structures, there's lots of nice euphonic, perhaps, imagery, where it's lots of colourful, interesting ideas that come together. I'm just looking, there isn't a rhyming pattern, and yet it seems to have this conversational air to the style. You've got and, so it's a storyteller. So let's go on. In daylight nothing, only their prince remained. You've got a real shift in emotive energy. It's sort of almost only their prince remained. The whole pace of it slows down. It's empty. They've gone. All the busyness and excitement of that language and those language structures is gone. Bitten in snow they'd gone. No one knew where or when or by what road. No one could guess. None but some sleepy girls half tangled in dreams. So it goes on explaining. Getting back, it's starting to gather a little bit more pace and colour, where it's describing what has happened. It goes into recounting the what has happened before. You get again this sense of power relationships. That unearthly beard had lifted your name, child. Sophia, sir, and what to call your grace? Like a bubble of guilt, he had laughed. Mercury. You've got this double pun on the word guilt. So guilt as in could be gold. When guilt is when you cover something with gold to make it seem like it's real gold, but it's not underneath. So it could be that, sort of something covering it. It could also be the sound of the word guilt, because he's taken advantage of this girl. Mercury, he had laughed. So he's completely impervious to any kind of feeling about the crime that he might have committed or what he's done. But Mercury is associated with thieves, tricksters, merchants, fleet-footed messenger. So there's that to bear in mind. It is long now since great demons walked on earth, staining with wild radiance a country bed and leaving only confusion of sharp dreams. So it's a very vivid, colourful use of language. The way that the vowel sounds, the assonance stretches out, really draws our attention to ponder in a kind of reflective way what he's trying to say right now. So we're just into the second half of this, where we continue the story. We're told that it was to vex a farm girl, that and perhaps a feather, some thread of the cloth of gold, a scale of metal. So this is all that's left, caught in her hair. The unpastured gods have gone. So there's this sense that whoever has trivialized this act to vex a farm girl. So she's been labeled as a farm girl, as someone who's ignorant, perhaps someone who is less educated or less important than these important people. And to vex, it's just like the person who says that they've been vexed is underestimating the damage and underplaying it. Oh, I vexed her. And so it's kind of satirical, I suppose, in that respect. So there's forgotten crime, and earth is only a troubled thought to them, and sometimes drifts like wind across the bodies of the sky's women. So we're on to the last part of the poem here, and we've got the last part where it says, "There is one yet comes knocking in the night, the dreams of sweet conspiracy on the pane. So when darkness has arched his hands over the bush and springwood steams with dew and the stars look down." So we're going back into this kind of heady, luxurious, sensory sort of imagery. On that one lonely chamber, she is there, lit by no torch or moon, so she lights herself, but by the shining of her naked body. Her breasts are berries broken in snow. So she's got this idea of purity, innocence, angelic. She's a contrast to those men, to the Mercury that was before. And we've got this sense that she is an idealized object of purity, of beauty, in the sense that, so the Romantic era, there was a lot of romantic writing in poetry that came after the Age of Enlightenment, and sort of as a response to the Age of Enlightenment. So the Age of Enlightenment was a lot about rationalism and scientific thought, and as a response to that, in the literature that came immediately after or sort of during the Enlightenment, there was a rebellion by writers who tried to use romantic imagery of the past, of Greek and Roman sort of times where magic, of times where those notions of nature and wildness were more were kind of reappropriated and said, look, this is important. We're more than just numbers and science. We are souls, and we are unique and beautiful, and let's bring back some of that heroism of the past. So that's where he's coming from with a lot of this imagery. So he's got, she knocks, the door swings open, shuts again, your name, child, 1,000 birds cry Venus. So it's sort of this symbolic triumph of love over utility. Perhaps you could even go further and just reading into it, you could say that the whole notion of war, or of the changing of ideologies that happened as a result of the war, are really played out in this poem. So you've got the unpastured gods have gone. So when the either the war or those ideas that went along with sort of just utility and using people and objects and everything being about merchants and money and what can be bought and sold, it comes back to Venus, to love, to truth, to beauty, to those historic values of the past. And that's a really big core theme in a lot of his poetry.